leaving Alderney now. Ooh. And we're going to do a night sail. That's France over there. What's over there, Stu?
Pardon?
What's over there?
That's Burhu, Puffin Island.
Oh, that's the Puffin Island.
Between that and the mainland, there are notorious swinds. We're trying to escape the current.
Escape it. So, I'm going to do my first ever night sail, and I'm absolutely terrified. It should take 12-13 hours overnight to get to Devon, and we'll see how it goes. Right, so it's just turned midnight. See, we've got moonlight here. Having a couple of problems. We can't appear to put the lights on for navigation. And turn the engine off. Doesn't like it. You've got to keep the engine on for some reason. But that's, I think we're going to have a look at when we get to somewhere safe. Other than that, yeah, we've got the auto helm wedged with the, can't see it, but it's wedged with a crock because that's broken. I'm not sure the exact term where you get a problem with your, do you know a sheet, but that's round in an odd way, and you have to wrench that out. Darkness. We just keep going. You thirsty, Portia? Huh? What are you doing over there? How'd you get on there? I'll have a rum and ginger beer if you're serving.
Well, here we go. Here's another Stu's summary of what's happened over the last 24, 48 hours. Where we left you was we were still in Alderney, and we'd moved the boat to a anchorage position where we'd put the anchor down with a view to spending the night at anchor and leaving for Dartmouth in the next morning. So on Sunday lunchtime we went to the sailing club, had a drink. In the afternoon, messed about, did the odd jobs and what have you, and then I suddenly realised that if we tried to leave on the Monday morning, that's the following morning, the tides would be all over the place, which means that we would have a night entry into Dartmouth. And night entries are all very well if you want to do a night entry and raise your adrenaline, but I thought, no, that's probably not going to work. So we decided on the spur of the moment that we would leave on Sunday evening, even though we'd paid for the anchorage, which was not a problem, but we decided to leave on Sunday evening because the tides were favourable for escaping from Alderney, because Alderney tides can be notorious, and you want to go one way, and if you get them wrong, they're so strong they will sweep you on your way down to Guernsey in a most uncomfortable helter-skelter ride. So we decided we'd go, and got the boat ready, really got super organised this time. We spent a fair bit of time making sure everything was ship shape and as we wanted it. Donned all the gear, and we were off on a 8 p.m. start for a night passage across the channel. Maddie's wasn't that keen on a night passage, but you know, the choice was a night passage or a day passage and a night entry, so on balance the night passage. And also it's good experience for somebody, I think, to have a night passage, to see what it's like and experience it. So 8 p.m. still light, favourable tides, to carry us out of Alderney, not down the Swinge or any other strong current, and off we left. Motored out of here, beautiful wind, forecast was a southwesterly, force 4, 3 to 4, beautiful sailing for the conditions. The conditions were nice, the sea had calmed down, and it gave us a lovely angle of attack into towards Dartmouth. That was the plan. On our way, it was lovely, left at 8 o'clock and it started getting dark, so by 10 o'clock we were on our way, well on our way, about 10 miles out, and you know, the darkness was falling and the night was waking up, which is lovely. I love that way you see the shore lights come on and what have you. Everything was going swimmingly. We were sailing along, I think, weren't we, Maddie?
Yeah.
Sailing nicely along, I think making six and a half, sometimes 7 knots, and a beautiful southwesterly wind. The sails were pulling nicely. We had the huge jenny on this boat up, the staysail and the mainsail, all of them up, and it suited the boat perfectly. Off we went. I don't know how long it was into the journey, 4 hours perhaps, and then 2 things happened. One is the wind started coming round to the west, and the course we were steering meant the closer it came, further west it came, the more it came on the nose, and catamarans don't like sailing to wind. They don't go to wind very well. I'd worked out a heading to get to Dartmouth. I can't remember what it was, but the heading, a direct heading, allowing for tides which take you one way and then the other. I mean, when you cross from, say, Isle of Wight to Cherbourg, the tides can take you 11 miles one way and 13 miles the other. So you just do a 2-mile offset. So I did a similar sort of calculation to get us into Dartmouth. Got a compass course, because I like the compass course, and off we went. Don't try and keep on a line, on a chart plotted line, straight line. Don't straight line it, just go with the flow. So we were going to do a big S going into Dartmouth. Set a compass course and off we went. And the further we went, the cross-track error, i.e. the difference between the compass heading and the heading, the direction the boat was taking, went up to 30 degrees. And I thought, well, this is very, very strange. That's a huge, huge cross-track difference. But I thought, well, we've got all the equipment, it suits the calculations, and I knew the tide on the French side was stronger than the English side, so I thought, well, it'll all come back, pull us up. So we started offsetting to the east, as to be expected. As the further this went on, the further I started getting more and more concerned, and then it turned out that the wind had turned so close, made us so close sailing to the wind, we had to motor. On went the motor. With the motor, what happens? Well, by this time dark, we had the navigation lights on. So everything was exactly as it should be, apart from this worry about the cross-track error. Suddenly, out of nowhere, all the lights started blinking on and off, blinking on and off. This is the boat lights inside, plus the navigation, the running lights, blinking on and then just went off. And I thought, what on earth is this? A slight malfunction with the camera. So there we were, the engine, we've been on engine for a bit, and I thought we can sail now, and this is in the dark, all the navons. Turned off the engine, within what, 3 or 4 minutes, something like that, all the blooming lights went out. Well, where's this strange thing? So I was scratching my head, couldn't work it out, thought, no, this can't be. You can't get as soon as we turn on running lights, navigation lights like that, how does everything else go off? It doesn't make sense. Turned on the engine again and everything came back on again. And we turned on the engine just to get ourselves back on course and thinking time. Then we started sailing again, turned off the engine. 4 or 5 minutes later, the lights went off. And Maddie had picked up then, she said, isn't it strange that every time we stop the engine, the lights are going off, but when we start the engine, the lights come on again. Now there is a conundrum. And so we ended up keeping the engine on all the time. As it happens, because the lights were on, all the lights were working with the engine. But as we were going across the sea, trying to across the channel, trying to keep a compass course, there was something not uneasy about it, but didn't quite know what it was. We crossed the shipping lane, and that was the westbound shipping lane was kind of busy. I'm glad we had AIS on, because we threaded our way through on AIS, and there was some pretty big stuff going pretty fast.
The Arvia.
Arvia, we saw the Arvia sister ship to the
Iona.
Iona, which is that what we went on? The
Yeah.
Iona. Yeah, we saw that go past, lit up like a Christmas tree. Anyway, long story, carrying on being long, we ended up in the about, I would have thought 17 miles, 15 miles east of Dartmouth. And by then we decided, well, let's not go to Dartmouth, we'll go to Brixham instead. It's probably easier. So on we plodded it, because this Sarabi doesn't like going, it can't go very fast under the engine, it's so heavy. But we had to try and pinch the wind the whole time, and no matter what we did, we couldn't seem to get to the course we wanted. Ended up level with Brixham, didn't we? So we had to steer course at 270 at about 2.9 knots, the usual thing with us. But at 0500 in the morning of this crossing, just after it had got light, we performed an ashes ceremony. My parents, I ended up with my parents' ashes, my mother and my father. And the ashes were in Australia, and last time we went there, my brother came to me, he says, go on, you get rid of those ashes in Epping Forest or something. So we decided we'd dispose of the ashes in midway between France and the Channel Islands in international waters. So we had a lovely little 5 a.m. disposal of the ashes ceremony, put them in the water with some disposable flowers, etc., etc.
Complete with dolphins.
Cool. And funny enough, just after the ashes had gone to water, a couple of dolphins arrived, didn't they?
That was lovely.
And I thought, well, that's interesting. Who knows where they're going to end up or what they're going to end up as. This is my parents. Carried on.
Not the dolphins.
Plodded, and then we just plodded hour after hour after hour, battling, sailing as close as we could to the wind, so motor sailing towards Brixham. And it was the most horrendous, boring, but worrying time, because I hadn't planned, I got as much fuel as we could take on, but I hadn't planned on motoring for as long as we motored. Plod, both of us getting really, really fed up. Made for a little cove next to Brixham Harbour. I think it's called Churlston Cove or Fisherman's Cove or something. Beautiful little cove. We finally got into this cove about 2 o'clock, just missing hitting the rocks on the entrance to it, because at that time you really shattered. Still with this mystery of the power going on and off, seemingly at will. And 2 o'clock, from 8 o'clock at night to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we were underway. Picked up the mooring buoy with some difficulty, but expertise on Maddie's part. So grateful. There's nothing like the relief of actually, when you arrive somewhere after a gutty trip, picking up a mooring buoy. Anyway, after this, a lot of head scratching was going on. What about the lights? And then what really brought the matter to a head was the gas alarm kept going off. Started going off. Beep, 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 beep. So I thought, well, the gas alarm goes off because there's a gas problem. Look, I checked every single gas fitting, because we've got a butane on the boat. Every single gas fitting on the boat with the stuff you use that bubbles if there's a leak. And we checked everything, and there was no sign of a leak anywhere. But what happens when the gas alarm was going off? All the equipment and all the lights went off. So it was a real mystery. Finally, I worked out that, hang on a minute, why are the fridges going off? They're on a separate circuit from all the switchboard lights and everything. They're on a separate circuit. So if they're going off and the switchboard circuits are going off, the problem is further upstream. So I traced it all back, and I've got I think it was a 300 amp fuse, inline fuse, from the battery to all the equipment that runs the boat, all the electric equipment. And there's a 300 amp inline fuse. And that fuse, weirdly, was almost switching on and off on its own, even though it's a breaker type fuse. And it turned out that it was this fuse. Now we think the fuse had blown because when we lifted the anchor in Alderney, it jammed, and
Again.
the windlass jammed, and it looked like that was enough of a surge with that jam to have started this fuse, I don't know, failing or whatever it was. I don't think I'll ever know. So we've got the situation now where I've bypassed that fuse. I mean, I've got fuses all over this boat, so bypassing that fuse is not a problem or difficulty. I just stuck it onto a different fused circuit, and we've not had a problem since then. So my next task, should I accept it, the next task I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a new fuse, put that in, and put some thicker wiring through as well, because I was a bit concerned that some of the wiring that was on this boat, the wiring we inherited, was not of a sufficient cross section to drive the 12 volts. Take an example of the autopilot. It's an Autohome 3000. That consumes quite a lot of power, and it was also on the circuit for that is a 12 volts, one of those like car cigarette lighter sockets, which was on the boat, and I used that to plug in the chart plotter. But the Autohelm was consuming so much current, it was cutting off the plotter, so we had that to contend with. So that suggested to me straight away, which is a slightly different problem the other one we're having, that that's underwired, the circuit, the wire's not good. So I've got to rewire that circuit into cross-sectional area wire that's sufficient and manly enough for the job. Amongst all this lot, because this fuse had gone, the solar panels were outputting to nothing, and they don't like doing that. So the solar charge controller, big Reynolds G, goodness, a 40 amp one I think, shut itself down, and so we weren't getting any power from those into the lithium battery, but we were from running the engine, because that went through a slightly different circuit. So we had an enormous amount of problems to deal with almost all at once, and it started becoming an overload on the sensory systems. So having Maddie and myself exhaustedly thinking we've had enough of this, fell asleep, went to bed last night after having stayed up for goodness knows how long, from 8 o'clock the previous morning. We woke up a bit of better frame of mind this morning, and we've just gone through and looked at the problems sensibly and one at a time, and I've got a big clear out of the anchor locker, thought through some of the other wiring issues, and we've decided the answer to life and everything else is a glass of red.
Cheers.
Cheers. Right, so following on from what we were talking about, our course, cross-track difference, and coming over here, we were following this compass. The boat's got a main compass, a Plastimo compass main contest main compass, and we were steering to that, the course over here. I can't remember what it was, but let's say I think it was close on
250. Yeah, I was doing.
Ah, well, yeah, this is where the thing gets interesting. Yeah. Because the actual compass was probably about 300 coming from Alderney to Dartmouth, roughly, but I'm just going to call it that because I can't remember exactly what it was. And I'll come back on what Maddie's point being here is interesting. And that was what everything was set up to. So we had the autopilot going on this set course. And as we were going along, we were still getting this quite a significant cross-track error. I'm calling it cross-track error, but difference. The difference between what we were steering and what we were going normally accounts for tide and wind. So off we go, poodling along quite nicely, but it was getting bigger and bigger and more confusing until early in the morning. Oh no, I'll go back a bit. As we were crossing the lanes, these like highways for the ships to go east and west so that they don't start knocking into each other, we relied an awful lot on the Navionics, which I've got on the tablet, and that is also related and geared into or tuned into AIS. So each chip gives a signal out called AIS, identification system, active identification system, or something like that, and it shows the course and speed of the vessel, the size, all sorts of information about it. And it was getting a bit quite. The east going was not so busy, 3 or 4 ships, but the west going was absolutely just heaving with these boats. So we were threading our way through using the AIS to thread through. But I had the tablet on the, if you spin round, there's a little bracket for it there on the nav desk. Now I had the tablet out because normally we would use, this is the great reveal, a Raymarine Element 7S with, again, with Navionics on it, but that's our permanent chart plotter, and I do a lot of working out, etc., on the tablet using the same basic Navionics. But I can't get AIS on the fixed one, so I can only get AIS on the tablet, which I promptly put there and let it get on with it. It was on autopilot. The autopilot had to be adjusted from time to time, what have you. And we were going on a merry way on our agreed course. But the scat was getting different, more and more different. Anyway, Maddie finally worked out, very clever, and you see Maddie's at the brains behind this organisation, had seen that when I put the tablet down there and she was steering by hand, the course suddenly changed. So she would alter to it, and it would change by about as much as 30 degrees, wasn't it?
Yeah, 20 to 30 degrees.
20 degrees. So say we were doing 180 for argument's sake. I put the tablet down there, and suddenly that 180 came, as Maddie said, to a course of 150. But I said to Maddie, just keep the course as is at the moment, not really thinking too much more about it like that. But her course and my course was different. I don't think it could have been 150 because that would have made us going pretty much south. So the reciprocal would be 300.
Maybe it was 250
or
then.
something. Yeah, maybe 250 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, 250.
Yeah, it would have been, because
yeah.
270 is due west, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. 250. Anyway, so off we went. We set the autopilot when it was going to this 10, and I would take the tablet on and off from time to time to do some calculations on it, because you can do your tidals and what have you. All the time, either the autopilot, Maddie, or myself was steering to the compass. Finally, Maddie realised that every time I took the tablet away, the compass direction changed, and we thought it was just because this boat doesn't steer very straight very easily. We thought it was just a natural variation of the waves
hitting a wave or
us.
something. Yeah,
and all those sort of things, and didn't think anything of it. But when we sat back here after this horrendous journey, putting us in the wrong place and sitting down, and thought the whole thing through, there's a couple of things I think. One is, with the catamaran, I hadn't appreciated just how much leeway they make under wind. The wind was coming from the front quarter, the port front quarter, and this boat was making, because it's got no keel per se, it's shallow draft, no keel per se, kind of floats like a dragonfly, and it was being pushed by the wind as well as the tide more to the east than I had appreciated, because I'm used to keel boats, and you know, I could work out the way they had some wind leeway of 5 degrees, for example, but this thing does, I would have thought 15 at least, something like that. So we were having this extra leeway which I hadn't appreciated, plus this compass problem, which meant we were actually heading, whether we liked it or not, off course, even though the compass heading was static. In other words, we kept on heading on whatever the course, let's call it 300. We kept on heading that because that was the calculation I'd done with leeway I was used to with a keel boat, tidal calculations and all that. But that got thrown out the window because the change in the compass, because every time I put the tablet on the nav deck out here, it was strong enough, a signal enough to throw the compass out. And the wind and the leeway was far more on the catamaran than I thought. So it was a hard lesson to learn about it. But rather than think, well, this, that and the other at the time, I just had to really assume that my calculations weren't good. Now, the bottom line is, no, they weren't. But the information I had to do them was flawed because I'm used to a keel boat. And also, this is excuses, isn't it? But also the biggest factor was the compass changing 25 to 30 degrees. Because every change we changed over, bear in mind there's myself, the autopilot, and Maddie all steering. And this tablet was going on and off not infrequently because of trying to sort things out. That was the biggest problem. The compass itself was giving an incorrect reading. Now, one thing interesting is I thought the compass was, I was a bit suspicious about the compass once before. So I got two handheld compasses out, put them apart, different parts of the boat, to make sure that they agreed with the boat's fixed compass, and they did. But of course that wasn't with the tablet in place. So really we are learning some really interesting lessons, aren't we?
When that one tablet's battery died and we switched to the other tablet, didn't have the same problem.
That's true. Yes, we got two tablets because we got a backup for everything. And I've got the Navionics on another tablet as well, a newer tablet, much newer tablet. And the newer tablet had no effect on the compass whatsoever. So it was the old one, which is interesting, and I don't know why. I'm not clever enough and an electronic engineer to understand, but that was another good point. And these are all the things that transpired and came out later when we sat down and analysed our mistakes. I mean, I prefer to learn by the mistakes of others, but we're learning by my mistakes this time, big time. And we have learned a lot. So one thing we have learned is that this, is it limoncello?
It's limoncello. Well, it's like a creamy limoncello.
Creamy limoncello, which we got
Lidl.
at Lidl.
In Portland.
It's great after a lovely meal that Maddie's just cooked. So
Thank
cheers,
you.
everybody.
And Portia's waiting for seconds.
Another bit of a ramble, but never mind. Hopefully.
And another thing.
And another thing. It's not still recording, is it?
Oh, it is, yeah. I thought you were going to do another ramble. Are you done?
Hell, 2 rambles a day is enough. Come
Right,
on.
okay.
I'm like the Ramble Association.
Cuteness.
You being cute? Hey, yes. Is that because we were
Oh,
talking?
you're so cute. Are you sunning yourself?
No, she said I'm going to be cute because they were talking to throw me overboard, and I didn't like that talk.
Oh, you just scared her again. So Portia's a super sailor now, aren't you? She's sailed across the channel, there and back, and also at night.
She's done overnight crossing.
Yeah.
And she's come all this way west from Thornham.
You're a master sailor, Portia.
And to think she's a Spanish passport holder.
Well, that's why she's a good sailor, isn't she? Because she's a Spaniard.
Ah,
Yeah,
the Spaniard on the ship.
Spaniard. Well, it's probably sailed over some of your Spanish Armada friends' ships
That's it.
on the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those ship's cats.
Oh, Stu. Well, that was a bit sad.